Hello there, Vikings fans. Welcome to the Purple People podcast. My name's Kyle West. Alongside me, he lives in a pineapple under the sea. His name is Adam Carlson. What's going on,
Hi. My pineapple isn't very good.
Adam?
But there's been a lot of action on for the Minnesota Vikings, and I like that.
Yes, it's been quite a newsworthy day. Let's just get right into it. Let's talk Percy Harvin. He's been traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Uh,
Yes.
we got what was it? A first round, a seventh round, and then a third round in 2014, right?
It might be a conditional pick in 2014, but I'm hearing mostly that the speculation is that it is indeed a third rounder. Or will be.
Yes, which is fantastic value to get out of a player who didn't want to be on the team in the first place. And if you were reading reports just a couple days ago, you were hearing that the Vikings would have been lucky to only get a third round pick for Harvin, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we were able to get a first rounder out of this guy, plus more. I am really quite pleased at what Spielman was able to do so far.
Yeah, he took a guy that was going to be gone without compensation after this season if they tried to retain his services, and just made a haul out of it with picks. For that, you've really got to be impressed with what he's doing in the front office.
It has helped this team so much to have one guy who is your decision maker. And he's the one who can pull the trigger on doing a move like this. Now, I'm sure Rick didn't just go off into his cabin in the woods and call the Seahawks. I'm sure they talked to Frazier and got his input and got the input from the Wilfs and what have you. But
Oh,
I
definitely.
really believe that, this comes down to Spielman being able to make the final call on sending a player away who didn't want to be on the team.
Yeah, when you got a guy that's been demanding a trade as much as Percy Harvin has been in the media and been blowing up, and it's just not a good thing.
It's been ups and downs with Percy in Minnesota. You've had the stuff with him having migraines and him having blow ups with uh, sometimes other players on the field. I don't know if you remember the Carolina game where he
Oh
got into
yeah,
that fight over on the Carolina sidelines. I mean, he's blew up at the coaching staff, and it's like you can give him the benefit of the doubt when it's Brad Childress, who's kind of a dick that no one really liked to begin with. But when you're having blow ups with Leslie Frazier, who by all accounts is one of the nicest guys that you can ever meet, like, you start to wonder it's probably more on Harvin's fault than what I would think it would be the actual Vikings organization.
well, I'm not going to place fault. I'm just going to say that this move is best for both parties. Harvin gets to go to a team where he can have a chance of winning a Super Bowl right now if that's what he wants. He goes to a state where marijuana is legal. I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah,
Kind of fun. But also, I posted this on the Purple People podcast page on Facebook, and I think some people finally understood what I was trying to say. Now, the Vikings got 3 draft picks for Percy Harvin. That is 1 draft pick for each receiving touchdown he had last year.
yeah, which is production that it's gonna be tough to replace what Percy does, but in terms of like you said touchdowns, we can figure that out. And the last time I checked, oh, we've got number 28 on the team, and he's Superman as far as I'm concerned, and we'll do just fine. Now,
Speaking of Adrian Peterson, I want to bring up a quote from him on his Twitter
oh, okay.
account. He tweeted, "The best all-around player I ever seen or you'll ever see goes to Seattle. I feel like I just got kicked in the stomach several times." Now, the thing that was really interesting to me is that if you follow Chris Cluey and some other players too, they always say how the Vikings lost this great player, dynamic player, exciting player. It's never one of the best all around guys. It's always best all around player, which really makes me wonder if they're choosing that word on purpose.
Yeah, that's a really That's a really interesting way to read into that one, Adam. I'm glad you picked up on that. Now,
And that's, I guess, all I really had to say about Percy Harvin's character issues. But I've got one other small
okay,
thing.
go right ahead.
Now, when a player leaves a team, he usually either holds a little conference or he goes on Twitter and says, "Hey, thank you for having us, or thank you for having me on your team and cheering for me. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry things didn't work out." You know, the political nice
Hmm.
thing. But what did Percy Harvin do? Instead, when he leaves, he throws other team members under the bus and says, "Hey, the reason why I wanted out of Minnesota is because I don't think our quarterback's worth a hill of beans." Really?
And
Where's the class in that? That's not Minnesota nice.
that's the kind of attitude that you don't want in the locker room. Yeah, great player can do wonderful things out on the field, but that's the kind of attitude where it's like, you know what? We are willing to move on with only having four receivers currently under contract. One of them is coming off a very severe injury. Uh,
Yeah, four receivers with six good knees.
Yeah, exactly. We are willing to move on with knowing that we've basically got nothing, that the cupboard is bare right now at receiver. We're going to let you go anyway. Like, that speaks volumes to his attitude.
Yes. And I know a lot of players on the team are really sad to see him go because he has a lot of production on the field. But like I said, I don't know if it translates into the locker room, into the off the field stuff, because you see pictures all the time of Vikings players hanging out, going fishing, going bowling, whatever. I've never, and I'll underline never, seen Percy Harvin in one of those photos.
Vikings, the organization takes pride in a lot of the community work that they do, and you see guys like Joe Webb or Michael Jenkins are out and they're talking with elementary school kids and doing the, different activities like that. And I've never seen a photo of Percy Harvin out there with his number 12 jersey on, working with elementary school kids, doing any kind of fundraising stuff like that. So he just really wasn't a fit with the team, and it worked well for a while, but it just wasn't a long-term fit for him in Minnesota.
No, it was best for both parties to move on, and I'm glad Minnesota got the compensation they did, and the Seahawks got themselves a fantastic player on the field.
Yeah, no,
But we'll have to see. We won't know for a couple of years how this works out because Minnesota's got to translate those draft picks
yeah,
into guys that can play at a high level.
we'll get to that here in just a second. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on, like you said, the compensation that we got for Percy Harvin, one of which was a first round pick. This is leaving Minnesota. We've got number 23 and number 25 in the first round, is where we are currently picking, which leads us
Right.
perfectly into our question of the week. This one comes from our YouTube channel. Let me find his name here. I don't know. I forgot to write your name down. I feel bad for that. Anyway, this came from our YouTube channel. He wanted to know, what are your thoughts on Manti Te'o and to the Vikings in the first round if he's still available? Well, considering we have two first round picks, if we want to get him, I have a feeling we can go up and get him. So, what do you think, Adam?
Well, that question came to us from Kalen Halverson.
I'm
And
glad
I'd
you
like to
got it.
say to Kalen that I like Manti Te'o. I do. I'm not convinced that his speed as a middle linebacker in a 4-3 is going to be enough to make him productive there. But I do think that he is an immediate upgrade to what we have, which is nothing,
Hmm.
or what we had, which is Brinkley. So if the Vikings were to draft Teo, I wouldn't be severely disappointed, but I would not really be jumping for joy. It's one of those things I'd be like, okay, now you gotta show me what he's got now.
I would be excited yet concerned if they drafted Tiao in the first round. Because to me, It is very, very important. Whatever the Vikings do with these two first round picks, they have to hit home. We cannot have 2005 draft all over again, where we bring in Troy Williamson, bust, and Erasmus James, bust, in the first round, because then suddenly all the value and all of the excitement that we're talking about getting out of Harvin means absolutely nothing. Okay? We ended up on the worst side of the deal if we draft two busts in the first round with these picks. So it's going to,
Very true.
yes, it'll be very important for Rick Spielman and his staff to figure out this is the can't miss player that we're going to take in the first round. And they need to do that.
I agree
Hmm.
totally. I know Teo is an exciting player, and before the whole scandal broke, and before the national championship game, he was projected as a top 5 pick. But he's been in free fall ever since, and now I don't know where other teams have him ranked on their boards. So it's going to be one of those really interesting things to see if he is even graded as a first round pick by any team.
If the Vikings were to draft him, I had read a couple articles where they were talking about how certain locker rooms it'd be tough for him to come into because players are going to be flipping him crap for what happened and whatever, whatever. I actually think if the Vikings were to draft him, it'd be a really good organization for him to come to because
I agree.
Frazier's got the thing where you don't haze the rookies, and like he's gonna come in and he's gonna be a contributor to the team. He's gonna do his job, and the locker room is. I feel like they would be supportive to him, and it would be a good fit, and you could maybe get him. Not maybe get him, like he would be, be playing at a high level again. So if they were to draft him, it could potentially be a good fit.
It very well
Hmm.
could. Should we get into our positional stuff now, though?
Yes, let's definitely dive into our positional players.
We've got our final group that we're going to be analyzing this week, and that is the secondary.
Hmm.
Let's start with the safeties and talk about Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith is awesome, and I love Harrison Smith, and I can't wait for the jersey that I bought from him to come in the mail.
Nice. Bet you're glad you didn't buy a Percy Harvin jersey.
I will be looking forward to not buying a Percy Harvin jersey when I'm at training camp this year, and they're for sale for like $9.99, and there will be a whole rack of them, and nobody will be touching them.
But back to Harrison Smith. He's an exciting young player, and he stepped into the secondary and played at a high level
Hmm.
immediately. I don't think we could have asked for anything more out of him really this season at all. So I'm excited to see him come back and see what he can do.
Yeah, me too. And I just want to make a quick note here. We're going to kind of go a little quickly through some of these players because we've got a lot of people to cover. So if it seems like we're going quick, we're kind of trying to a little bit. Uh,
Yeah.
Harris,
We had to squeeze in all this huge Harvin news.
yeah. Harrison, my thought on him, obviously, fantastic player, bright future. Love the intensity that he brings to the field, and I can't wait to see him line up and play against Percy for real so that he can really go out there and smack him around. I don't know if you remember back to training camp, Harrison and Percy got into that scuffle.
Oh yeah, I do
Yeah,
remember.
so I want to see Harrison go out there and show him what a real Minnesota Viking is made of.
Oh. Well, let's talk about Mr. Raymond because to me he is the guy that this group of safeties is really hinging on right now. Because it seems like the Vikings want him to be the starter alongside Harrison Smith, and he played well last year. He did. But can he keep up that kind of effort? Or should the Vikings look for another guy to push him in free agency or in the draft?
I wouldn't be opposed to that actually, but I liked the improvement that he made. I thought coming into last season that it potentially could have been a disaster with him out on the field, and he surprised me with how well he played in stretches, and I want to see him continue to do that and continue to grow as a player.
Exactly. And if the Vikings can get their linebacker situation figured out, that'll make it even easier on the safeties.
Hmm.
Next in line, we got Robert Blanton. Now, Robert Blanton didn't get a ton of playing time. He's a converted corner into safety, another fellow Notre Dame player on the
One of
roster.
the many.
But he's also one of those guys that has a lot of potential, and he's just really learning the position. So I don't think he's ready to step in quite yet, but I think he's one of those guys you can keep your eye on and see him building up to being something maybe
He'll
special.
be a fun he's a fun guy to watch during training camp and preseason, and to just kind of watch him grow and mature. And like you said, I think there'll be another year here where he'll kind of develop, and then maybe in 2014 is when you'll see his role hopefully expand on the team. But I like Robert Blanton. He's a good guy.
A good guy, a
Yeah,
good guy.
he's a good guy. That's my insight on him, because I know him personally. You know, we text all.
Yeah, he doesn't kick kittens, so he's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see that Facebook meme.
Oh.
But on to Andrew Sendejo, who was an excellent contributor on special teams for the Vikings. He's also a bit of a speedster, and he seems like a lot of fun guy on Twitter. Other than that, I don't know much about him.
Core special teams guy is where you nailed it. I seen him come out and he had a couple really hard hits on special teams that stuck out in my mind. And that's kind of stuff that you want to see. You want to see a player give it his all when he's out there on special teams, and let's see if he can translate that intensity over to a larger role on the team.
Agreed totally.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get to a group that a lot of fans feel differently about. That's the
Hmm.
corners. Now, a lot of fans feel like the current class of cornerbacks on the roster aren't quite where they should be. A lot of people think that we have enough talent now to start building and they're young. How do you feel about that, Kyle?
Well, I like I like guys like Chris Cook and obviously Winfield and whatnot, but I want to see someone like Cook play a full season. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start things off talking about Antoine
Okay.
Winfield, and there really isn't much to talk about. I mean, he is one of the most solid men in the NFL at corner. Defends passes, tackles solidly. He is what you want for a cornerback in the Tampa 2
Hmm.
system.
He's our resident veteran player who's been with us forever in a handbasket, and not to be confused with Hank Basket. That was a that
No.
was a horrible joke. I'll see myself out for that one. Uh, anyway, good locker room leader, just the kind of guy that you want to have around the team. Wealth of knowledge that he can show to the younger players underneath him. Benefited quite a bit from them not really working him out during the week and saying, Antoine, you know what you're doing. Just go out there on game day and perform for us.
Right.
I was impressed with that, and hopefully we'll get another solid season. I'm sure we will out of him. The question is how much longer is he going to play, and who is his replacement going to be when he finally does hang those cleats up?
Right. The major question is how long will he be able to stay at corner and be as effective as he is? Will they end up moving him into safety to see what he can do there? Is he making too much money for his age in a roster that's a lot of young guys?
Can he stay
There's
healthy?
a lot of question marks with Antoine Winfield, but honestly, there's a reason why I bought his jersey and a reason why he, to me, is one of the guys that is the heart of that
Mm-hmm.
defense. And then we got Chris Cook,
Yeah.
who probably 2 years ago people were ready to write off and cut, and he's come out and he's been a really solid player. He broke his arm last year, came back from that at a pretty quick pace.
I was impressed with that. And, it all started with him. He shaved off those dreadlocks. And it's like the hair got shorter and the work ethic just seemed to improve at the same time. Uh, I like Chris Cook. Like I said, I want to see him play a full season where he doesn't get hurt. There's no off the field issues. He's just out there and playing at a high level, shutting down the big receivers that they ask him to do, which I think he does. He's done a good job when they go, okay, Cook, we're playing Detroit. You've got Calvin Johnson. Go out there and handle him. He's done.
He's shown that he is
He's
capable
capable.
of that
He's
kind of work.
capable of doing that. And if they can, like I said, just get a full season out of him, where he can grow and he can work and to improve upon his game all year long, he'll be a good corner for the Vikings.
Now you were talking about Chris Cook being there to match up against the taller wide
Hmm.
receivers. The Vikings have Josh Robinson to match up against the speedsters.
Yeah.
That boy's got wheels.
Yes, he does. You got a sporty time in front of you.
I do not.
Neither do I. We should have had that, but he's quick. Just go with that. He's quick.
Yeah, just trust us, he's
Yeah.
fast. That boy is fast. And he's shown a lot of flashes of brilliance in coverage, too. He still got beat a bit, but it was his rookie year, give him a little bit of slack there.
Yeah. He's a fun player to watch on this team. He's one of those ones that you hope turns into the next big thing at that position because his measurables are pretty good.
Exactly. The next guy on the list is A.J. Jefferson. Now, a lot of fans are calling for him to be cut. They didn't like his coverage in the games, but I think a lot of that had to do with just perfect passes and unbelievable reel-ins that were happening against him. For a while there, it seemed like he was the unluckiest corner in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think he's still a good corner. I think that they should be able to retain him and bring him back at a really reasonable cost. And I enjoy having him being a part of the Vikings team.
I think he'll be back too, and I totally understand what you're talking about with the being unlucky thing. I call that Phil Loadholt syndrome because it never failed anytime there was a penalty, even if it wasn't him, they would still throw the flag and it would be on Phil Loadholt. And just
Oh yeah.
sometimes just the most unlucky thing would happen to you. And that would happen to AJ Jefferson sometimes, where you would look at him and I remember looking at the game tape after the game and going, his coverage was good. Like he ran his route, he covered the guy the way he's
Right.
supposed to, and I don't remember who it was against, who the receiver was, but they like jumped up and did some Randy Moss one-handed twisted catch that came down on the sidelines, and it's like you can't expect him to cover that.
No, no, you can't.
Yeah,
But that's one reason why I'm in AJ Jefferson's corner.
he'll be back on the team. I think he'll be back, and I think we'll be a better team because of that.
Now I've got a big question mark. This is my question mark on the team is Marcus
Hmm.
Sherrills. Now to me he is more of a punt returner than he is a corner. I'm not really impressed with his coverage skills, but as of right now he is the return man on the roster. I can see if the Vikings bring in a guy like Teddy Ginn or Leon Washington that Marcus Sherrills will be not returning.
But like you said, right now he's our guy out there on punt returns and kickoff returns. So
Right now that's
that
him.
his value just based on that is almost enough to bring him back on the team because someone's got to do that. And I actually liked him in that role. Of course, you got to be able to do more than just that for the team, but it's he'll he'll be a body in training camp,
Yes.
and for sure he's worth another look, and I wouldn't be all that surprised to see him back in purple.
Oh, he's a young guy. He can still
Oh
improve.
yeah.
There's no doubt there. He spent his off season working hard and getting his skills ready because he will be competing with guys like the next guy we're talking about, Brandon Burton.
Hmm.
So you love that guy or what?
Yeah, Brandon Burton. We're going into the guys where I'm like, okay, let me think hard here about Brandon Burton.
Brandon Burton, although he was on the final roster, I don't know if he ever really was brought up for or dressed for the games.
I don't think so. I really,
I think he had Audie Cole syndrome for a while there,
yeah.
where everyone wanted him suited up and he just didn't.
Yeah, Brandon, I'm sure. Hey, they have someone knows something about Brandon Burton. That's for sure.
I know his names both start with B.
Yep, me too.
And then we're going to group together this next group of guys just because, let's be honest, they're young guys. They're fighting for a spot. And we don't know a ton about many of these guys, and that's Bobby Felder, Nick Taylor, Rod Williams, and Greg McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a lot of bodies to bring in, and we know that come training camp, there's going to be even more guys in this because the Vikings will be drafting several players because they have, 11 picks
We
this
have
year?
11 draft picks total.
So we're going to see a lot of bodies in camp. We're going to see more than the names that we just listed,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to make it a crazy competition.
Yeah, and those are always fun. It's fun to me when you've got guys like we know what Harrison's role is on the team, we know what Winfield's role is, and we know where guys like Cook fit into it. It's really this is why I don't want the NFL to ever cut preseason from anything less than 4 games because I love seeing those other guys go out there and try to fight for a spot and see what they can do to make the team. I just love that, and this is a group right here where it's a little bit open down there, and it's
Yeah.
who's hungry, who wants to be on the Minnesota Vikings, or who wants to be a Percy Harvin and go do some other shit. Like who who wants it? And so let's see what these guys got.
Now, I am not going to advocate that we do a show for special teams because we're going to assume that Colin Leffler is going to be back to long snap, that Blair Walsh is going to be the kicker. The only question mark right now is TJ Connolly and Chris Kluge are battling for the
And
punter
that is
spot.
not even a question mark. To me, to me, that is not as TJ Cooley was brought in because Cluey or what's his name, TJ Conley. Yeah,
Yep.
I kind of mushed the two together there. Um, I think he was just brought in because Cluey had a little bit of that knee scope done, whatever. And we all know about his tirades that he goes on, and it's just the team sending a little bit of message to him saying, "Hey, you're not." Invulnerable to having competition brought into your spot too, which is good. At the end of the day, Cluey is going to be our punter because Cluey is really good at what he does.
My only issue with Kluge is that he's making about $1.5 million on the salary cap, so they might get a rookie to come on in and do it for much cheaper. Who knows? But
Yeah,
if he can continue being good at his job, he might be able to keep
I
it.
am a proud owner of a Chris Cluey jersey, and I will wear that until the end of time. If he gets traded to another team, I will buy a Seattle Seahawk Chris Cluey jersey.
Well, that's all I have for this week. How about you?
We are probably really long, so we'll just leave it at that. Do we know?
That's right, ladies. You heard it.
Do we know next week's show what everyone has to look forward to?
Next week, we're going to be talking about free agency. We're going to be doing a lot of research on the guys that are available. We're going to be talking about some of the moves that were made
We're going to be talking
because
about.
free agency will be going on already by the time we record the next show.
We're probably going to have breaking news at the beginning of next week's show that we'll have signed some big free agent wide receiver. That
Maybe. We'll
that's
see.
my prediction for next week's show.
But I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone for listening. Thank them for being active on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Purple People Podcast, on Twitter @Purple Pod. And I'd like to remind everyone to stay classy, Minnesota.